Hey guys, this lovely manhwa is titled To the Saintess Who Killed Me. I'll turn back time to see you. Growing up, she didn't know she was surrounded by people with ill intent. She never once doubted that she was happy, because she was born as a noble lady in the kingdom of merit and was loved by her family. She had a carefree childhood friend, a beloved fiance who was the second prince of the kingdom, and lastly, a best friend who was a saintess. What more could she ever want? She felt her life was complete and actually the best so far, until the day she was betrayed by everyone. The one whom she called her best friend had her tied up and was about to have her executed. Why, Shala? She asked in pain, and Shala replied, saying it was because she had killed Prince Alkshirus. Aster yelled, saying she didn't do such a thing. But Shala claimed not to believe her, because her maid had confessed to having taken orders from her. Aster was so shocked. Okay, let's go back to a month ago. The two young ladies had gone out shopping, and Aster wore a dress, asking Shala if she liked it. Of course, she said it was so beautiful on her, but the other one, the one she hadn't tried on yet, would look much better. Aster wore the dress, and Shala's expression was a testimony that it looked so good on her. In the carriage heading back, Shala asked Aster if she was sure, and she replied by asking what she was talking about. Shala told her she felt it was strange that she was the one escorting her to choose a dress instead of her fiancé, Alkshirus. Aster smiled, saying it was fine because both her father and fiancé were busy, and it had been a while since she got to spend time with her best friend, so it was worth it. She added that if word got out that she had Saintess Shala all to herself, then the Athens family might be hated by the people. Shala grinned, saying she was glad to have gone shopping with a friend, not as a saintess, but as a girl. Upon hearing this, Aster was amazed and suddenly softened her expression, saying she would soon be married and had never thought they'd be separated so soon. Shala smiled, saying her wedding with the prince would be wonderful. Aster was pleased to hear that and assured her she'd have a special seat on that day. Shala smiled mischievously, saying she couldn't wait. On getting home, Aster got to spend time with the prince. Looking at her, he was so happy he couldn't help but confess how being with her made him happy. More than anyone else, he was truly glad he'd get to spend the rest of his life with her. He told her how the kingdom had changed, there was endless war with the neighboring country, and taxes were increasing, making hardship worse. But then he said that if he married her, he could ease some of that burden. Aster smiled happily, saying she was sure that if he became king, the kingdom would shine again. The servant poured tea into a cup as the two discussed and talked about future plans. Aster watched His Highness with a soft expression as he sipped his tea, but then, the cup fell from his hands and hit the ground. Alkshirus collapsed to the floor, to Aster's shock. She rushed to him immediately, and he was literally coughing up blood. She cried her eyes out as she watched him take his last breath. Even in that state, he called out to her affectionately and whispered for her to run away immediately. He died right after telling her to flee. This is crazy, right? He drinks tea and dies, but before dying, he told his fiancée to run, which means he knew what had been plotted. After the prince's death, rumors began spreading that the daughter of the Athens family had poisoned the prince, claiming she might have had feelings for another man and decided to eliminate the prince for being an obstacle. Aster was locked up in prison, and throughout her stay, all she thought of was her fiancé, Alkshirus. The two had met when they were kids, and just as kind as he was then, he remained the same over the years. So you're the daughter of the Athens family, he had said, happily reaching out his hand for a handshake, asking if she liked exploring. As a little girl, Aster had been so impressed with him that, in that moment, she loved him and knew he was the one for her. Who would have thought that her relationship with her childhood fiancé would end because of death? Aster began crying, thinking to herself how she'd been thrown into the dungeon for killing her own fiancé, and no matter how she cried out her innocence, no one believed her. She remembered her fiancé's last words, but it was too late now. She couldn't run, and it was obvious he had known someone was after his life. She curled up, saying to herself that she was sure her father would prove her innocence, so she wouldn't give up. Just then, Aster heard her name. She turned, and it was a man covered in black. She asked who it was, and he replied, taking off his cover and saying it was him, and that they were getting out of there. It was her childhood male friend, Sirius. Sirius and Alcturus had been the best of friends too. Aster was so pleased to see him. She rushed to him immediately, saying she didn't kill Alcturus and that he had to believe her. He grabbed her hands, saying he had come only because he believed her, and that he would definitely get her out of there. On hearing this, she was so touched. Tears were about to fall, but he reached out his hand, asking her to come. She hesitated, saying that if he let her out like this, then he would be accused of being a criminal too. He told her he didn't care, because he was sure his friend would have done the same. Instantly, Aster was reminded of how her fiancé would protect her. She decided to take Sirius's hand and walk out of the dungeon. But unfortunately, Shala showed up with her people, laughing and asking where she thought she was going. Sirius stepped in front of Aster immediately, but Aster, still unaware, thought Shala was there to save her. "Save you? I would never," Shala said, shocking Aster. She told her she was there to inform her of her execution, but she hadn't expected to find her with Lord Sirius. Shala didn't care and happily told the poor girl that she would be burned alive. Aster was terrified as the saintess fantasized aloud about how she would burn in front of everyone. Although it would hurt, she said, it was the punishment Aster deserved, the kind of punishment that would make her atone for her sins. Aster couldn't believe Shala was saying all this. Sirius told her lady immediately that the one who had killed her fiancé, Alcturus, was none other than the saintess standing right in front of them. Aster still couldn't believe it. She asked Shala if it was true, but Shala replied, saying it was crazy how the commander of knights was trying to play the hero. She ordered her men to capture them immediately, but Sirius drew his sword and prepared to fight. He used his magic to create a barrier instantly. Shala smiled, reminding him that she was the saintess and had enough power to hold him in her hands. Before Sirius could understand what was happening, some men had already gone behind him and placed a sword at Aster's throat. Shala asked what he would do now in this situation. "Will you drop your sword or abandon Aster?" she asked. Sirius glanced at his lady and saw how scared and pitiful she looked. Aster shouted at him to run away and not to worry about her, but he smiled, apologized to her, and let go of his sword. Immediately, Shala's men pierced him with their swords, right before Aster's eyes. Sirius's last words were an apology because he couldn't save her. The pain was too much, unbearable. Watching her second dearest person die in front of her was more than she could take. The day of her execution came, and everyone gathered, gossiping about how she had killed the prince because she was having an affair with his best friend, the knight commander. Upon seeing Shala, Aster asked why she was doing all this, and what she intended to gain. Shala smiled, coming close to her as she stood tied up, and said she had forgotten to tell her something, that she had always loathed her from the start. "Because every single thing I couldn't have, you had it all." The people watching assumed the saintess was praying for the sinner. Shala told her how her smile back then had been so cute that she couldn't bear it. So, she decided to take everything from her, starting with her fiancé, her childhood friend, and also her family. Upon hearing her mention her family, Aster asked aggressively what she had done to her father, mother, and sister. Shala told her they had already been accused of treason, were in ruins, and that everything was her fault. Aster was completely broken, and Shala smiled, saying, "That's the look I've been wanting to see for so long, and I've finally seen it." Shala pulled away, saying she would have loved for Aster to witness the tragic way her family would die one by one, but sadly, she would go first. "Maybe you'll get to see them in the afterlife," she added with a wicked grin. Aster was set ablaze. She screamed and cried as she watched herself burn. She thought to herself, if only she could use strong magic like her father, then maybe there would have been a possibility to get revenge for all her loved ones. If only she could return to that moment. Aster wished fiercely, just before she burned to death. Immediately, Aster opened her eyes. She saw her parents standing right in front of her, saying she was finally awake and that they were worried about her. Aster was shocked to see she was still alive. How was it even possible?